the Torah teaches that the name that you give to a child can have great significance. And this is illustrated by the story of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher. As we know, he was born at a time when there was a decree to kill every male child of the Hebrews. And he was born, and his parents tried to conceal him for 3 months. Then it was impossible to hide him any longer. So kind of in desperation, they prepared a straw cradle, and they made it waterproof, and they placed it by the banks of the Nile River. And then his sister Miriam stood aside to watch what would happen. And it turns out that the daughter of Pharaoh, who was a very righteous woman, it's interesting that Moses was saved, and the Jewish people eventually were saved because of the good deed of Pharaoh's daughter. And she asked the mother of Moshe, Miriam, the sister, said that she would get a nursing woman from the Hebrews, didn't say who it was, and she nursed the child in the early years. Then she brought the child to the daughter of Pharaoh, who was the adoptive mother. And the Torah says that she named him Moshe because she draws him out of the water. Now, the way that's translated is, he who rescues and draws forth others from trouble and danger. Now, the meaning of the name is in the present tense. And in the commentary of Rabbi Apelkowitz, it says the name was given by Pharaoh's daughter to the rescued child should have been Masui, which is the past tense, who was rescued, rather than Moshe, implying one who draws forth. The explanation is that he was called by a name reflecting his eventual role as a rescuer, a role played by Moses over a prolonged period, as opposed to a rescued one, which was a brief and isolated, although important event in his life. So she chose to give the name which reflected the very fact of how he himself survived. And the name was that he is the one who's going to rescue. And I think this really had an impact upon him, because the name of a person is very important to the person, especially if it has a meaning. He's very curious, why did you give me that name? And if that name has a signification and a calling in life and a designation, there's a very good chance that this will have an effect upon him. And Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, also Moses, said that the fact that he was given the name Moses, and Moses was the great decisor of Jewish law, that had an impact upon him in shaping his career, in which he was the great halachic decisor of the Jewish people. In the case of Moshe, though, the effect it had upon him was that he viewed it as his mission to intervene on behalf of oppressed people. This began in Egypt, when he gave up his own safety to rescue a Jew who was being beaten by the Egyptian. And Moshe intervened, and he saved the Jew. Then, of course, it was found out, and he had to flee to Midian. And over there also, he saw the daughters of Yisro, and they were being afflicted by the shepherds, chased them away from the watering holes. And Moshe arose, and he saved them. Took on a whole group of shepherds. He was a fearless individual and brave and dedicated to fighting against injustices, to fighting on behalf of the oppressed. And of course, the rest of his career, when he took upon himself, God commanded him. He didn't want to be the leader, but he had no choice. And once he was the leader, he was totally dedicated to the welfare of the Jewish people. And even when they strayed, even when they sinned, he was totally dedicated to them. And he became the great leader of the Jews. He became the great teacher of the Jews. But in my opinion, the Torah is telling us the name Moshe had an effect. It kind of delineated what his task was, what his mission was, and it was something that he felt he had to live up to. So I would say that the takeaway from this is that it's not a trivial matter, that when you name a child, whether it's a male or a female, it should have some type of a signification. There should be some type of an idea that you want to impart to the child. And there's a very good chance, in and of itself, it's not going to be enough. You have to raise the child in the proper way and all of the other things. But all things being equal, the fact that there's a worthy ideal that the child looks up to and respects, and this is his actual name, his actual designation, can have a very significant impact on the life of the child.